What if I told you that the future of global business could be shaped by a country you might not expect? The Philippines, a nation of over 7,000 islands, has quietly positioned itself as a key player in the world economy. But with the rise of AI and shifting global dynamics, could this Southeast Asian nation be a crystal ball for what the next decade holds for the rest of the world? From tech to trade, we'll explore how the Philippines might be setting the stage for changes that could impact us all. The World Bank has raised its economic growth forecast for the Philippines, projecting a growth rate of 6.0% for 2024 and 6.1% for 2025. The report highlights robust domestic demand and public investment as key drivers, along with concerns regarding external risks and inflation. In fact, the country's economic output is roughly a third of the global average. This is particularly surprising given the Philippines' rich natural resources. However, simply exploiting these resources isn't enough to create wealth, and in many cases, it can actually work against a nation's progress. This is what makes the Philippines so intriguing. The country is rapidly catching up and has the potential to become one of Asia's advanced economies, standing alongside Taiwan, South Korea, and Japan. It's harnessing the power of its people just as much as the wealth hidden beneath its soil. As Southeast Asia becomes increasingly fragmented, the Philippines is emerging as a stable and welcoming hub for business. Companies are looking to the Philippines to manufacture products and conduct operations that have become too complicated to manage in China. Despite calls for independence and resistance from guerrilla fighters, the US chose to use the Philippines as a foothold for Asian trade. While that wasn't the official reason at the time, it was undoubtedly a key motivator. To become a competitive trading hub, the country needed significant investments in infrastructure, especially in an era when economic success hinged on mechanization and modern facilities. The US military's sponsorship led to hospitals being built, roads renovated, and bridges funded. Manila, the capital, experienced significant transformation. As the decades rolled on, America shaped the Philippines in its image. English became the dominant language, especially in governance and business, while the education system was revamped to promote American values, often at the expense of local cultural heritage. The US wasn't acting out of altruism. They recognized the strategic importance of these islands, making them a worthy investment, even if they couldn't claim them forever. After World War II, the US and the Philippines signed the Treaty of Manila on July 4, 1946, granting the Philippines independence. Sharing a day of independence with its former ruler ironically underscores the extent of the Philippines' reliance on US support. Today, the political and economic interests of the Philippines are still intertwined with those of the USA, whether the country embraces this relationship or not. The big question looms: is the Philippines' entanglement with the USA a gift or a curse? This country has emerged as a major hub for outsourcing, serving one of the world's largest employers that many people have never even heard of: Accenture. This self-proclaimed multinational powerhouse is headquartered in Dublin for reasons that are definitely not tax-related. In 2023, Accenture reported an impressive revenue of $64.1 billion, powered by its work with 91 of the Fortune Global 100 companies. With a staggering 733,000 employees and operations in over 200 cities across 49 countries, Accenture is serving clients in more than 120 economies worldwide. A significant portion of its operations comes from professional services rendered by low-cost employees in countries like the Philippines, where labor is much more affordable than in advanced economies. But why the Philippines? There are other competitive nations nearby, like China, Thailand, and India, which, by the way, has more English speakers than the Philippines has people. So why do major global companies keep choosing the Philippines? The answer is both simple and surprising. Decades of Western education, cultural influence, and professional training have equipped Filipinos to connect with Western clients in ways that workers from other Asian countries may not be able to. With high standards and solid regulatory practices, Filipino workers have proven to be incredibly dependable. And let's not forget about security. Western companies are much more inclined to trust firms in the Philippines with sensitive documents than their Chinese counterparts. An analysis on the Philippines' economic landscape suggests that rapid technological advances, especially in AI and automation, could create both opportunities and challenges for the country. The ability to adapt and harness these technologies will be crucial for maintaining competitive advantages in sectors like business process outsourcing. India, another outsourcing hub, has faced its share of scandals and leaks that have eroded trust among potential business partners. In 2019, T-Mobile sued Chinese manufacturer Huawei for allegedly stealing technology through an Indian subcontractor. Reports from the US Department of Justice revealed that Huawei incentivized employees to steal confidential information globally, culminating in serious legal repercussions. In that same year, Wipro, one of India's largest IT companies, suffered a devastating data breach allegedly orchestrated by a state actor, only to discover the breach months after it had occurred. This trend isn't limited to private businesses. Public entities are also regretting their outsourcing decisions. Nebraska's state government sued Wipro for failing to deliver on a $6 million upgrade to a healthcare network, while the US National Grid pursued Wipro for a botched SAP upgrade. The fallout from these issues ultimately cost Wipro $75 million, far more than any initial savings they hoped to achieve. Concerns over lax regulatory practices and questionable attitudes toward intellectual property theft have led the United States to blacklist major companies from both India and China for tech outsourcing. For economies that rely heavily on outsourcing to stabilize their GDP, these blacklists can be catastrophic. While geopolitical motivations play a role, they present a significant opportunity for the Philippines. The country doesn't need to be perfect. It just has to be the least risky option. Beyond Western customs and regulatory practices, there's another unique reason why the Philippines is so appealing: its geography. Unfortunately, this same geography contributes to its industrial stagnation. As a collection of islands, the Philippines faces immediate restrictions on the services it can provide. Infrastructure connecting these islands is often limited or non-existent, making it consistently challenging to develop physical areas and industries. Having a defined niche can be a double-edged sword. The Philippines imports far more than it exports, racking up a staggering trade deficit of about $57 billion a year. That's a significant gap for an economy of this size to fill. Although some revenue comes from services to overseas clients and remittances, money sent back home by Filipinos working abroad, these streams alone aren't enough to stabilize the economy. The country needs another, more reliable source to close that trade gap. One promising growth industry has been shipbuilding. While the Philippines may not have the industrial capacity to compete with the mega shipyards of Japan, China, and South Korea, it has developed a robust industry focused on producing smaller, more manageable vessels. Given its geography, the country has a long history of operating fleets of smaller cargo ships and ferries throughout the archipelago, making it well suited for this kind of production. For every 20,000 TEU cargo ship demanded by the world's largest shipping companies, thousands of ferries and basic freighters are tirelessly crossing the oceans. This strategy of mastering the basics and doing it in mass has been a driving force behind the remarkable growth the Philippines has experienced over the last 2 decades. It might sound a bit harsh to label an economy as aggressively mid, but in this case, that's exactly where its strength lies. Basic services and fundamental shipbuilding are just the beginning. Now, let's dive into the technology sector. While it may not shine as brightly as the high-end processor market, the Philippines focuses on producing small, valuable components like basic microchips. Sure, it pales in comparison to Taiwan's tech scene, but does the Philippines really need to compete in the same arena? The truth is, basic microchips are in high demand. For every iPhone or gaming rig in a home, there are dozens of other devices running on simpler hardware that rely on these very chips. The trade-off here is clear. While the Philippines might not reach the heights of billion-dollar industries, it excels in mid-tier operations. Combine basic microchips, basic shipbuilding, basic consulting, and basic electronics, and you have a stronghold in middle-of-the-road enterprises. That's certainly within reach. The Philippines boasts a talented workforce and excellent global connections, but other forces threaten its economic stability more than competition. Corruption is an open secret, deeply entrenched at various levels of government and business. This corruption stifles economic growth from the outset. We're talking about everything from misuse of public funds to old-fashioned kickbacks and bribes. Domestic industries often struggle to secure funding from a government with a history of eroding public trust. Take the tragic case from 2021, when a prominent anti-corruption journalist was shot outside his home. A clear message to those daring to hold the government accountable. Despite his courageous efforts to expose corrupt officials, the alleged mastermind behind the assassination remains uncharged. Instead, the self-confessed gunman received a mere 16-year sentence, a shocking contrast to the Philippines' notoriously tough justice system, where drug possession can lead to life imprisonment or even the death penalty. In 2023, the Corruption Perception Index ranked the Philippines 115th out of 180 countries. Navigating the red tape is enough to deter most Filipinos from starting their own businesses. Outsiders share the caution, preferring to keep their distance, which means the country struggles to attract the risk-takers needed to advance its industries. Uncertainty is a significant deterrent for investors. The Philippines may offer a youthful workforce and a strategic location, but the potential for political instability casts a long shadow on investor confidence. Now let's shift gears and look at President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. Yes, he's the son of Ferdinand Marcos, who was ousted from power decades ago. Marcos Jr. has announced plans to deepen ties with the USA and Japan, claiming this could lead to a $100 billion investment. This influx of cash could potentially reshape the country's reputation and transform it into a manufacturing and logistics hub. It's a bold vision, and perhaps what's needed to streamline business legislation and tackle corruption driven by self-interest. Take a look at the geography of the Philippines. Only a handful of islands are genuinely developed, and that largely depends on their proximity to major islands receiving most economic attention. Other regions may have high GDP per capita due to tourism, agriculture, or fisheries, but overall, inequality is ingrained in the nation's geography and worsened by questionable governance. Manila, for instance, is the world's most densely populated city, boasting a per capita income more than 10 times higher than that of remote islands. Most developing economies face a brain drain, but in the Philippines, it's particularly acute. The same language and cultural skills that once made the country competitive are now fueling a mass exodus of talent. The question remains, will the Philippines find a way to rise above these challenges and seize its rightful place on the global stage? Only time will tell. At a time when the Philippines can least afford to lose its brightest talents, the nation finds itself in a race against time. The goal? To advance rapidly before becoming obsolete due to the rise of new technologies. Analysts warn that the sectors most vulnerable to AI disruption include back-office operations, customer service, call centers, warehouse management, administration, and logistics, all areas where the Philippines has carved out its niche in the outsourcing industry. So, let's break down how the Philippines measures up on the Apex Chronicles leaderboard. Starting with size, the Philippines boasts a GDP of $471 billion, ranking it as the 32nd largest economy in the world. It sits just behind Singapore and ahead of Vietnam, two dynamic economies that have achieved their own remarkable growth in vastly different ways. For size, we're giving the Philippines a solid 7 out of 10. However, that impressive GDP is spread across a population of 115 million people, leading to a GDP per capita of just $4,130. Despite consistent growth over the years, this figure still falls short of the global average of $13,000, so the country receives a 3 out of 10 in this category. Now, let's talk about stability and confidence. The Philippines enjoys a degree of national security, largely thanks to its unique relationship with the United States. But this relationship is a double-edged sword, opening the door to potential complications we've discussed throughout this video. Coupled with domestic issues like corruption and political tensions, the country can only score a 5 out of 10 here. Next up is growth. The Philippines has demonstrated impressive resilience, leveraging its vast workforce and developing a unique set of local industries. In fact, the nation has nearly doubled its economic output over the last decade, earning a commendable 9 out of 10 for growth. Finally, we look at industry. While the Philippines might not lead the world in any single area, there's merit in being average across various sectors. Still, with the looming threat of AI, a heavy reliance on foreign transfers, and a lack of locally grown companies, the Philippines receives a 6 out of 10 for industry. Adding it all up, the Philippines earns an average score of 6 out of 10. A healthy but middle-of-the-road rating that reflects the overall theme of this economy. As we've seen, this nation is more than just stunning beaches and vibrant culture. It's a dynamic player in the global economy, facing challenges and opportunities that could redefine industries worldwide. What do you think? Will the Philippines lead us into the future, or will it struggle to keep pace? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an update. Until next time, keep exploring the world of economics with us.